So I have some slides I wish I could share, but my computer does not accept any slides unless the slides are created by its PowerPoint system. It does not accept any slide from any other source. So would have to do without the without the slides. So the nectar of instruction, which is the
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
If you have it in a place where you can share it, maybe probably to email or WhatsApp, then I can help to share it for you.
Okay. That is what I can try and see if I can send it by the problem is I have a Mac computer, and this Mac computer is just very difficult. Yeah, it has its own advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. All the PowerPoint I have on a portable
On Windows.
Yeah, portable drive. I have all my teaching materials on a portable drive. It will not accept the portable drive. It will not even allow it to open. And if you put it on a pen drive, it will not take it. So I'm having some problem.
Yeah, they need to be converted back to Mac.
It has to be converted into Mac.
Yes, because you're using a Mac. So I think most probably those slides are done on Windows. So on the Windows and Mac, they have a different software application.
Oh, Krishna. A minute.
Okay.
One more time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare
Okay, so I think for today we just have to go with the PowerPoint. Hare Krishna. I've tried to change the computer, but still the portable drive will not even open. So it looks like we just have to do without the PowerPoint today, and then after, maybe tomorrow, we can work on it. So tomorrow we can possibly use the PowerPoint. So today we'll do without the PowerPoint. So the Nectar of Instruction is a very important book for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because as the title entails, is Upadeshamrita, instructions. So this Nectar of Instruction, compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami, is like the handbook for making progress in Krishna consciousness. Actually, Rupa Goswami, as we all know, is a very special devotee. He's an empowered devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered Rupa Goswami to rediscover the pastimes places of Vrindavan and write literatures for the benefit of the entire world. Just as it is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vrindavaniyam Rasha Kelivartam Kalena Luptam Nija Shaktim Uktaha. That just as in the beginning of creation, Lord Krishna enlightened Lord Brahma and empowered him with the details of creation, with the details of knowledge of creation that allowed Brahma to execute the function of a secondary creator. So in the same way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with great spiritual potency. And by that potency, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to rediscover all the lost pastimes places of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan Mandala. And in addition to that, he also wrote many, many books on the science of bhakti. Actually, it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu treated Rupa Goswami as part of his body. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much loved Rupa Goswami that he accepted Rupa Goswami as part of himself. Priya Swarupe Dayitaya Swarupe Prema Swarupe Sahaja Virupe. Rupa Goswami, who is said to be a very dear friend of Swarup Damodar, was an exact replica of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was so dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Mahaprabhu would embrace him and keep him very close to his heart. Being the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, Rupa Goswami was naturally very beautiful and very attractive. Therefore, he very carefully followed the principles that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciated. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught him. And by following those principles, he was able to expand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy in the form of establishing Sri Vrindavan Dham and writing so much Vaishnava literature for our benefit. For 10 days at Allahabad, Prayag, where the three holy rivers meet, Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. For 10 days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami on the science of bhakti. And we can say that the nectar of instruction, Sri Upadeshamrita, is the result, or one of the results, or one of the outcomes of that instruction that Rupa Goswami received from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this Sri Upadeshamrita, although it's such a small book compared to many other books, but it contains instructions that can make the practitioner a Goswami. Actually, it is said that Rupa Goswami wrote this Upadeshamrita for us to become Goswamis. And therefore, you can see that from the very first verse of this Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami spells out the qualities of a Goswami. From the very onset of this book, Rupa Goswami began to speak about the qualification of a Goswami. So it means that when he was writing this book, he was thinking how he can convert all Vaishnavas into Goswamis. So for our lesson 1, we'll look at the preface. We'll go through text 1 and maybe text 2. So in the preface, we can read the preface together. I'm going to read it. Srila Prabhupada writes, this Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas or Bengali Vaishnavas are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. Therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Rupa Raghunath Pade Haibe Akuti Kabe Hama Gujaba Se Yugala Priti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to bestow upon human society the benediction of the science of Krishna. The most exalted of all the activities of Lord Krishna as his pastimes of conjugal love with the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the best of the gopis. Therefore, to understand the mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in his footsteps, one must very seriously follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis: Sri Rupa, Sanatana, Bhatta Raghunath, Shlajiva, Gopal Bhatt, and Dasa Raghunath. Sri Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave us this Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction to follow. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him the 8 verses known as Shastaka, Rupa Goswami gave us Upadeshamrita so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. In all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Everyone within this material world is engrossed in the most of passion and ignorance. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, Sattva Gun, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami. And then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. So take note of this. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. In Vrindavan, this is the title by which the director of each temple is known. One who wants to become a perfect devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. Go means the senses and Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Upadeshamrita, which have been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us many other books such as Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, Vidaga Madhava, and Lalita Madhava. But Upadeshamrita constitutes the first instructions for neophyte devotees. One should follow these instructions very strictly. Then it will be easier to make one's life successful. Hare Krishna. This is the preface by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. So, from this short preface, we can pick out.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, please pardon me to interrupt a little.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear you.
Sorry to interrupt. Ramachandra Prabhu, please kindly, no, not Ramachandra. Yes, Ramachandra Prabhu, please kindly put on your video. After the class, I'm going to make some few announcements, but it is no longer allowed for any student to be on the in the class without his video on and the proper code. But we'll give all of the standard later. But for now, I've sent a personal message to you. You are not responding. So that's why I'm interrupting the class. It's either you respond or we'll remove you from the class. You can continue, Prabhu.
Okay. So from this preface, which is like an introduction to this very wonderful book, we can pick out a few points. So having gone through this preface, what can we learn from this preface? What are the important points? What are the takeaways from this preface? You can raise your hand and say something from this preface. What is the Prabhupada telling us from this short preface?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Happy Diwali first.
Yes.
And in this, I can understand that we should control our senses, and we should be master of our senses. Without that, we can't be a Goswami, or we can't increase our devotional service to Lord. Yeah.
Yes.
According, yeah.
You can't hear anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can't
In
hear
fact,
anything from you. Your side.
you're not hearing?
You check your device. The audio.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
And over to pronounce. Please,
Dhanavad.
from paragraph 3, I
Yeah.
also read that Rupa Goswami gave us this work so that we can perfect our life as pure Vaishnavas. So it is good that all Vaishnavas will read this book, study it very well, so that we can become pure Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So we must control our senses, mind and senses. And we don't control our mind and senses, it is not possible to become Goswamis. If we don't become pure Vaishnavas, it will be very difficult for us to actually understand the transcendental pastimes of Radha and Krishna. In order to understand the Leelas of Krishna, the Leelas of Radha and Krishna, one must have a pure mind and a pure heart. And that is why Rupa Goswami is giving us this handbook to make us pure Vaishnavas, to make us learn the art of controlling the mind and the senses. So the purpose of studying this book is to make us pure devotees. Any other point from this preface?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Dhanavad Pranam, Maharaj.
Dhanavad Pranams.
Maharaj, you are welcome. Go.
Thank you, thank you. We are here since the last 3 days. So.
Oh, Hare Krishna for your life. What I've learned a little bit from this, the student advancement in Krishna consciousness depends upon his attitude.
That's right.
Attitude towards practice of this particular book, this chapter, which was handed down by Rupa Goswami to the Krishna conscious student.
Yes.
It depends, our progress depends upon our attitude.
Very important. Actually, it is one of the questions. It's one of the questions that often comes in the exams to this module. The nectar of instruction is one of the questions. The the progress of Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the practitioner. And Prabhupada says that very loudly here, advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. So these 3 points must be taken note of. That Rupa Goswami is giving out this handbook to enable us control our mind and senses. Hare Krishna, I see Prem, you are finished? Okay, so thank you very much. I'm with the students for the Bhakti Shastri. So, this small book is meant to convert the neophyte devotee into an advanced devotee. This Upadeshamrita is meant to promote the neophyte devotee from the Kanista platform to Mandhyama, and of course to Uttama. As we are all aware, Rupa Goswami discusses, we'll come across that in this book. He discusses the 3 categories of devotees. The Kanista devotee is the beginner. He only sees the deities, he only respects the deities, but he does not see anybody else. The Madhyama devotee is a person who sees the deities, he worships the deities, he also respects the devotees. He knows how to deal with devotees, and he avoids the non-devotees because they are not interested in Krishna consciousness. He has nothing to do with them, except those who are favorable, he preaches to them. Then the Uttama class, the most advanced, is called the Uttama Adhikari. He knows the devotees, he knows the demons, he knows how to handle both parties. Actually, he doesn't even see demons and devotees because of his exalted position, his exalted spiritual vision. He simply sees the Atma, he sees the soul in all living beings. And so he welcomes everyone. But for the purpose of preaching, he comes down to the level of Madhyama, whereby he can make differentiation. So this book is meant to create Madhyama Adhikaris and Uttama Adhikaris out of the Kanista Adhikaris. This book is meant to help the practitioner rise from the platform of Kanista to the platform of Madhyama. And in order to do that, it is important that we purify our mind, we purify our senses, we control our mind, we control our senses, and all of this culminates in our attitude. The attitude of the practitioner is key, is important. If we conduct ourselves in a humble way, in a meek way, in a loving way, in an enthusiastic way, in a determined way, then it becomes possible to become Krishna conscious. And in fact, Rupa Goswami is going to touch upon all these things I'm mentioning: enthusiasm, patience, determination, our relationship with other devotees, the 6 things that enhances devotional service, and the 6 things that destroy devotional service. Rupa Goswami is going to discuss all of this in this small book. Actually, this book, even though it's so small, it is so great because anyone who studies this book carefully and follows the instructions that are given by Rupa Goswami, he would end up an exalted devotee. No two ways about it. Because he gives us the essence of how to become Vaishnavas. So take note of these 3 points. You will definitely meet one of them in your exams. I remember when I wrote the exam for this Baptist Shastri, nectar of this devotion, nectar of instruction, this question, the advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on filling the gap.
Hare Krishna. I think Prabhu's internet's got frozen. So wait a little bit.
Empower the soul. Externally, we may portray a certain attitude externally. And internally, we may have a different attitude. That is always there. Some people can put up a show externally, but internally, they have a different mentality, different way of thinking. Krishna monitors both. Krishna monitors the external behavior and he monitors the internal behavior. Krishna monitors what we are thinking, what we are desiring, what we are planning. Krishna is always monitoring these thoughts. And based on this, Krishna rewards. Based on this, Krishna empowers. Based on this, Krishna gives his special mercy. So it is important to always remember that Krishna is with us. And Krishna says that Sarvasya Chaham Hridesani Visto Mata Smriti Gyanam Apohanam Cha. Krishna is saying, I am seated in the heart of every being. And from me comes knowledge, comes remembrance, comes forgetfulness. So Krishna is supplying everything. If we desire to gain more knowledge in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will supply the knowledge. If we desire to remember Krishna 24 hours, Krishna will facilitate that. But if we also desire to forget Krishna, forget about devotional service, forget about our chanting, japa, Krishna is also so kind, he will facilitate that. So the attitude of the practitioner is key when it comes to the advancement in Krishna consciousness. So are there any comments? Otherwise, we move on to text 1. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you have told that everything if whatever we want, Krishna gives.
Yeah.
But sometimes, we want Krishna, but sometimes we forget. But why? Yeah, but why Krishna doesn't allow us to remember him?
It means that your determination is not very strong. Your desire is not very strong.
Okay.
Everything we desire, it has to be strong. It's like the case of Yashoda. Yashoda Mai, these pastimes of Damodara Lila. Yashoda wanted to bind Krishna. And she tried again and again and again, and it was not possible. He brought all the ropes in the house and joined them up to bind Krishna. It was not possible. But she didn't give up. She had a desire that this naughty boy, I must tie him to the grande mortar so that I can do my service. So the desire of Yashoda Mai was so strong. Even though Krishna did not want to be bound, actually Krishna did not want the mother to bind him. He was against it. And that's why she has to find one rope after another in trying to bind Krishna. She brought all the ropes in the household of Nanda Maharaj, but he could not bind Krishna. But when Krishna saw that his mother was sweating, he saw that his mother was determined. He saw that Yashoda Mai's desire was very strong to bind him. Krishna allowed. Krishna allowed. So whatever we want to do with the Lord, we have to demonstrate our determination. And that is why Rupa Goswami is going to talk about it in the next 1 or 2 verses. The six principles that facilitates devotional service. So we should increase our desire more and more and more. And increasing the desire actually means chanting our rounds. When we chant our rounds regularly, it means that we are increasing our desire for Krishna consciousness. And also, when we chant our rounds more attentively at the right time, you see, everything has a time. There is a good time for good japa. And so if we are able to do our japa at the right time, in the right mood, without offenses, then we are intensifying our desire to become Krishna conscious, and Krishna, seeing our effort to become Krishna conscious, will help us. He will manifest in our mind. He will manifest in our hearts. So if we are desiring to be Krishna conscious and it's not happening yet, one of the factors is that our desire is not very, very strong. And so we have to increase our desire so much so that Krishna will see the agency. Krishna will see that this devotee, he wants nothing except me. And Krishna will manifest his presence in your mind. It's like the case of Brahma. When Brahma found himself on the lotus flower, and he did not know where he was, because all around is dark. The universe is dark. It's a tama. It's a place of darkness. So Brahma was in great darkness. In the whole universe, he alone in darkness. So, but Brahma, because of his great intelligence, he heard the word tapa, and he understood that if I don't perform some tapasya, if I don't demonstrate my determination, if I don't demonstrate my willingness to satisfy the Lord, I cannot get out of this darkness. So, with great determination, Brahma engaged in tapasya. And for thousands of years, Brahma was sitting in meditation, performing tapasya. And when Krishna saw that Brahma was strongly desiring to gain knowledge, Krishna revealed himself. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Krishna entered the heart of Brahma and revealed to him knowledge that he needed to effect the material creation. So whatever we do, our determination must be paramount. There are many examples, even Sanatana Goswami, when Sanatana Goswami wanted to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it wasn't very easy for him because Rupa Goswami had already left. And the Hussein Shah, the king of Bengal, was depending on these two brothers to run the state. Rupa Goswami was the finance minister, and Sanatana Goswami was the chief minister, prime minister. So because of these two brothers, Hussein Shah was at peace. He could go anywhere, he could travel, he could do anything. And then knowing very well that these two brothers were keeping management in order. But when Rupa Goswami resigned, he was still thinking, all right, Sanatana is there. No problem, he can go. Sanatana is there, the chief minister, he will keep things going. So, but Sanatana also had a desire to renounce. He had a desire to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was thinking what to do, and he decided to report sick. So he did not go to work for a number of days. Meanwhile, he was simply hearing Srimad Bhagavatam at home. He would employ some brahmanas to come and recite Srimad Bhagavatam for his hearing. And so when the king did not see Sanatana Goswami for a number of days, he decided, and then the report was that he's sick. So he decided to go and visit him. And when he went to see him, he only saw Sanatana Goswami with brahmanas. They were reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sanatana Goswami was relishing his Bhagavatam stories. And the king was so angry. He said, what? You are neglecting your work as a chief minister, prime minister, and you are simply sitting here listening to these stories? You better go to work or I put you in jail. And Sanatana Goswami told him, sorry, I am not going to work again. I've decided to give up this work. I want to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the king said, all right, you choose. Either you go to work or I'll put you in jail. Excuse me, I have to pick a very important call.
You see, we'll do the jollof rice in the pan, frying pan, that big one. And the paste also, tomato paste. And some.
One more time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you have to unmute. Suraj Parashari, you need to unmute. Okay.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
Our major donor is calling me, and I have to pick the call. The only thing I should have put my phone on silent so I don't even hear the call. So now I've done that so that nobody interferes with the class. But once these important people, they are calling you, you don't pick, they get angry. And then when you request them for some support, they will be reluctant. So he was calling me because we are requesting for some things for the farm. So I have to respond. So I'm sorry for the interruption. It's essential, very essential. But I've put my phone on flight mode so nobody can get me now. So sorry for that. So so I was talking about Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami demonstrated great determination. Just imagine that any of us, we are serving the king, and then the king tells us that if we don't go to the office, he will put us in jail. So that is a very challenging situation. I'm sure if I were in that position or you were in that position, probably would have chosen to go to the office instead of allowing ourselves to be put in jail. But Sanatana Goswami, to show his determination, he told the king that I am not going to any office. Whatever you want to do with me, you do with me. My program now is Krishna consciousness and nothing more. That was his option. That's what he chose, knowing the consequences. And so immediately he was put in jail. So just to show the amount of determination sometimes we need to put up to attract Krishna's attention. So definitely, once Sanatana Goswami opted for Krishna consciousness and accepted to go to jail, Mahaprabhu will not leave him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will not leave him. Krishna will not leave him. Krishna will follow him to the jail and make sure that he gets out of the jail. So determination in Krishna consciousness is very important. And so in the next 2 or so verses, Rupa Goswami will talk about that. So that is why we need to build a very strong determination in our practice of Krishna consciousness. Then, no matter what the challenges are, we would contain it because of our great determination. And Krishna is one of the factors, one of the items Krishna is looking up to or looking out for in the practitioner. How much are you determined? Definitely, the material world is a challenging place. It is so designed to constantly harass us. It's called Drugadam. Druga means very difficult. The material world is a very difficult place. Every second, every moment, some challenges are coming. But a devotee understanding that this is the nature of this material world is also equally determined to practice Krishna consciousness. Is equally determined to do the needful. He is equally determined to execute his duties. And by being determined, Krishna will reciprocate with such a devotee. In fact, all the devotees who have become exalted, all the devotees who have become dear to Krishna, they went through a lot of challenges. Personalities like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Narada Muni, count them, Ambarish Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, count them. They all went through very serious challenges, very serious, life-threatening challenges, but they remain fixed, they remain determined, they remain faithful to Krishna, and therefore Krishna reciprocated with them. So anyway, I think we should move on to text 1. Text 1 says, Vachovegam manasha kruda vegam, jiva vegam uda parosta vegam, itam vegam yo visheta dira, sarvam apimam pritivim sa sishat. The translation: a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. I read it again. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So we'll take some parts of the purport. We can't read all the purports, but we'll pick some parts for our discussion. The purport has, it's a lot actually, 15 pages purport. So this is the very first verse. Rupa Goswami is, or the very first instruction Rupa Goswami is given in this book. And so from this verse, we can understand the mood of Rupa Goswami. From this verse, we can understand the intention for writing this book. From this verse, we can determine what would follow. We can determine the outcome of studying this book. Just like it says, the fragrance of the food tells you the taste of the food. When the fragrance of the food is very appetizing, certainly the food is going to be very tasty. So similarly, this opening verse is like the fragrance of this book. This opening verse immediately brings to mind the goal Rupa Goswami had when he penned this book, when he wrote this book. He wants everyone to tolerate the urge of speech, to tolerate the mind's demands, to tolerate the actions of anger, to tolerate the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. And if one is able to do this, immediately one becomes a Goswami. And if one becomes a Goswami, he is qualified to accept disciples throughout the world. So this is the goal with which Rupa Goswami is writing this book. And so we have to we have to bear this in mind. We have to meditate on this verse. We actually have to imbibe this verse into our lives if we want to be the recipients of Rupa Goswami's mercy, if we want to be the recipients of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And we can see that actually the material wealth deals mainly with these things. Speech, activities of the mind, activities of anger, the urges of the tongue, the urges of the belly, and the urges of the genitals. If you look closely, you see the whole material world is simply acting on these things. The whole material circus is going around these things. In other words, if one wants to break the chain of samsara, if one wants to end this material existence, then definitely one has to accept this instruction of Rupa Goswami. Practice it, live it, and preach it. Then one can be sure of making progress. In fact, all the problems we have in life is simply due to the fact that we fall short in these 6 urges. That is a fact. The whole world, or the people of this world, have become victims. They have become victims of these urges. And therefore, Rupa Goswami is opening up his instructions with this verse to give us a clue of his intentions, what he wants from us, what he wants us to do, where he wants us to be at the end of studying this piece of literature. So we shall take some parts on the purport because we can't read the whole purport. So I'll read the first part. First paragraph says, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1, 9, and 10, Parikshit Maharaj placed a number of intelligent questions before Shukadeva Goswami. One of these questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control their senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing, and he may actually even see a thief arrested by the police, yet he continues to steal. Experience is gathered by hearing and seeing. One who is less intelligent gathers experience by seeing, and one who is more intelligent gathers experience by hearing. When an intelligent person hears from the law books and shastras or scriptures that stealing is not good and hears that a thief is punished when arrested, he refrains from theft. A less intelligent person may first have to be arrested and punished for stealing to learn to stop stealing. However, a rascal or a foolish man may have the experience of both hearing and seeing and may even be punished, but still he continues to steal. Even if such a person atones and is punished by the government, he will again commit theft as soon as he comes out of jail. If punishment in jail is considered atonement, what is the benefit of such atonement? Thus Parikshit Maharaj inquired, Drishta Shrutabhyam Yat Papam Janam Api Admano Hitam Karoti Bhuyo Vivashaha Prayashitam Atto Katam Kwachin Nirvatate Bhadrat Kwachit Charati Tat Punaha Prayashitam Atto Partam Manye Kunjara So Chavat. He compared atonement to an elephant bathing. The elephant may take a very nice bath in the river, but as soon as it comes out onto the bank, it throws dirt all over its body. What then is the value of its bathing? Similarly, many spiritual practitioners chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and at the same time commit many forbidden things, thinking that their chanting will counteract their offenses. Of the 10 types of offenses one can commit while chanting the holy name of the Lord, this offense called Namno Balaryasya, Hi Papa Buddhi, committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Similarly, certain Christians go to church to confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the results of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over and Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activity, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This kind of prayashita or atonement is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj, the most intelligent king of his time. Shrikadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spiritual master of Parikshit Maharaj, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. A sinful activity cannot be counteracted by a pious activity. Thus, real prayashita, atonement, is the awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. Real atonement involves coming to real knowledge. And for this, there is a standard process. When one follows a regulated hygienic process, he does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such a methodical life is described as tapasya. One can be gradually elevated to the standard of real knowledge of Krishna consciousness by practicing austerity and celibacy, brahmacharya, by controlling the mind, by controlling the senses, by giving up one's possessions in charity, by being avowedly truthful, by keeping clean, and by practicing yoga asanas. However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all the practices for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process, simply by following the regulatory principles of Krishna consciousness, refraining from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, and by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. This easy process is being recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. So, as I earlier on stated, that these 6 urges are actually pushing the whole way around. Everyone is caught up in these 6 urges. People like to talk. They say so many things that are not necessary, and they create problems for themselves by not controlling their speech. As for the mind is keeping us slaves. The mind controls and dominates the living entity. The mind dictates and actually makes us very, very miserable. Krishna mentions that in Bhagavad Gita. Udaret atmanamanam nanmanam avazadayat. That the mind must be controlled. One must uplift himself by his mind. One should not degrade himself with the mind. One who has controlled the mind becomes a friend. And one whose mind is not controlled, the mind becomes the worst enemy. So the actions of the mind, the urges of the mind are very devastating for many, many people in this world. Except for the devotee who has offered his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna, except for the devotee whose mind is engaged in the service of Krishna and thinks of nothing but Krishna. The rest of the people, they are just being tortured by their minds. In fact, sometimes we may appear very peaceful, but internally we are very disturbed because of the activities of the mind. So, Rupa Goswami in this verse is alerting us, is bringing to our understanding that one who has no control of his mind, who has no control of his speech, who has no control of his anger, who cannot tolerate the edges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, such a person is already in hell. He is already suffering the consequences of a hellish life, even though he is yet to go to hell. And one who has been able to control his speech, his mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, such a person has already entered the spiritual sky. He is already a resident of the spiritual sky, even though he is still walking among us in this material world, because he is no more under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature. He is no more under the influence of Maya. He is a Jiva Mukta. He is a liberated soul. And so, even though he's in this world, but his consciousness is out of this world. So therefore, Rupa Goswami is giving us a clue of how to live a very peaceful life. Rupa Goswami is giving us a clue, a formula by which we can actually begin to experience the spiritual world right here on earth. It is possible. And that begins with controlling our speech, controlling the edges of the mind, controlling the edges of anger, controlling the edges of the tongue, the edges of the belly, and the edges of the genitals. Somebody wants to read the next paragraph? Somebody would like to read the next paragraph?
Krishna Gurudev.
Okay.
First, one must control his
don't have the
speaking
books
power. Hare Krishna Gurudev, please can you hear me? I'm reading. Hare Krishna, please can anyone hear me?
Yes. Yes,
You
Prabhu,
can
we
go
can.
ahead. You can go ahead.
First, one must control his speaking power. Every one of us has the power of speech. As soon as we get an opportunity, we begin to speak. If we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak about all sorts of nonsense. A toad in a field speaks by croaking. And similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of the toad, however, simply invites the snake, please come here and eat me. Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the toad goes on croaking. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalists, Mayavadis, philosophers, may be compared to the croaking of frogs. They are always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence. The external process of Mauna. As Mayavadis philosophers think, silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Goswami advocates the positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking process in glorifying the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. The preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. The restless or fickleness of the mind, Mano Vigar, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22.31 says, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adikara. Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, there is no possibility of the minds being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogi process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always think of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled.
Thank you very much, Raghunatha Prabhu. So this is Prabhupada is talking about controlling the speech. Speech is such an important activity And speech actually speech speech serves as a barometer of our consciousness. Just as it is said, the index of the mind, the face is the index of the mind. Just by looking at somebody's face, you can understand what is going on in his mind. So therefore, it is said that the face is of our consciousness. One who is Krishna conscious, whatever he says will be connected to Krishna. And one who is not Krishna conscious, whatever he says will be connected to Maya. Therefore, Arjuna was asking the question in chapter 2, when Krishna talked about the Stadi Muni, the sage, one who has risen above the three modes of material nature. Arjuna was asking, how does he talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? And in that purpose, the Prabhupada says that speech is a very important determinant of the consciousness of a person. And then he said, a fool is not known until he opens his mouth. So long as one is dressed very nicely and one keeps quiet, he is considered a gentleman. And one is dressed in suit, three-piece suit with a nice suit, a nice tie, with a nice briefcase. He's a gentleman, perfect gentleman. If he does not open his mouth, he will respect it. But as soon as he opens his mouth and begin to speak, then immediately people will see this guy is not intelligent. This guy is a rubbish. This guy his mind is not correct. So therefore, speech is a very important element in life. How we speak to people, how we talk to people, it is very important. A Krishna conscious person must learn how to speak. A Krishna conscious person must always speak very nicely, very sweetly, because he speaks about Krishna. And speaking about Krishna is attractive. Speaking about Krishna is sweet, because Krishna is the center of all sweetness. Maduram, Maduram, Maduram. So speech is an important element, and therefore Rupa Goswami is advising here that one must control his speech. Prabhupada writes here, the toad in the field also speaks by croaking. But what does that croaking do for the toad? The croaking simply attracts a snake. He simply invites the snake, and the snake comes to swallow the toad. So the talking of materialistic men and impersonalists are simply compared to the croaking of toads. They are simply inviting Maya to swallow them up. And we have seen this happen. People say things to provoke others, and then there is war, there is fight, and somebody is killed. We have seen this in life. Somebody cannot control his tongue. As soon as he opens his mouth, he will say very, very, very painful things, very abusive words. You provoke others, it will turn into a fight, and many people are killed. In fact, many of the wars, world wars, are fought simply based on this speech. People say things, people utter things that they are not supposed to say, and that creates a problem for themselves and for others. So speech is very important, and the only way we can control this speech is speaking Krishna consciousness. The non-devotee or people who practice austerities, they practice Mauna. Mauna means silence. They don't like to talk because they don't want to speak anything to offend somebody or speak anything that would create problems. So they prefer to keep quiet. But for a devotee of Krishna, our silence is preaching. Our silence is to speak about Krishna. So long as you are speaking about Krishna 24 hours, it is considered that you are silent. So long as you are glorifying the Supreme Lord, you're not talking about anything material, you're not talking about anything about yourself, all that you are saying is considered silence because you are not engaged in materialistic talking. But for the non-devotees and the Mayavadis and the Jnanis, because they fail miserably to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their words are entangling. Their words are destructive. And so what is the benefit of making speeches only to entangle yourself or to hurt others? So therefore, a devotee has to control his speech. It is so important that Rupa Goswami is talking about it right from the very word go, right from the first verse of this chapter, of this book. So it means as devotees, we have to practice how to speak nicely. We have to practice how to glorify Krishna. We have to practice how to glorify the devotees of the Lord. That is what the Association of Devotees gives us. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned Krishna Kripa, no, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Kripa, Bhakti Swabhava. Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Kripa, Bhakti Swabhava. One can only make progress in Krishna consciousness by the association of devotees, Sadhu Sangha. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra, Haya. Sadhu Sangha, Lava Mantra, that even a moment's association with the devotees of the Lord is very, very beneficial. A moment's association with the devotees marks the beginning of our Krishna consciousness. So, Sadhu Sangha, devotee association, Krishna Kripa, Krishna's own mercy, Bhakti Swabhava, the very nature of Bhakti. Bhakti Devi, she's so kind. Bhakti is so merciful. Bhakti Devi is so merciful that when we make a little attempt in Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Devi begins to bless us. Bhakti Devi begins to reward us. So, in the association of devotees, then devotional service can sprout. In the association of devotees, one can have high hopes of making progress in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada next talks about the fickle mind, the restless mind or the fickle mind, which is manovega. To control the mind, one has to fix it at Krishna lotus feet. Ambuja Charanada Vrindam. When one fixes the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna, one will certainly control the mind. Actually, there is no other way to control the mind. One may try artificially to control the mind. But if the mind is engaged in thinking about Krishna, the mind is engaged in speaking about Krishna, the mind is engaged in planning how to execute Krishna consciousness, how to share Krishna consciousness. Such activity is considered superior than just trying to control the mind physically. And Srila Prabhupada calls the verse Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Adankaraha Yahan Krishna Taham Nahi Mayara Adikara. Krishna is just like the sun, which is all bright, which is all light. And Maya is just like darkness, which is dense, and one cannot even see in the dark environment. So one whose mind is engaged in Krishna's service is experiencing the sun of Krishna. And one who does not engage his mind in Krishna's service, he is engaged in the darkness of the material world. In other words, the devotees who are always engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotees who are always engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord, they are always experiencing Krishna Surya Sama. They are always experiencing the blissful situation of Krishna consciousness. And those who fail to do that, their mind is absorbed in Maya. So the natural way to control the mind is Krishna consciousness. And so we are all very fortunate that we have been given this very powerful process, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam, hearing and chanting and remembering. All engages the mind, all involves the mind. To hear, the mind is engaged. To speak, the mind is engaged. To remember, the mind is engaged. all the senses, they function under the guidance of the mind. They function under the direction of the mind. So any speech we make, the mind is involved. Any hearing we make, the mind is involved. Actually, the senses are meant to feed the mind with the external stimuli, the happenings of our outside world. The senses, they feed the mind with such stimuli. And the mind dictates how they should respond to these stimuli. So, the mind cannot be a vacuum. There's no way the mind can be a vacuum. And that is why Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, Chanchalam hi manasa Krishna. It says the mind is chanchalam, is always on the move. The mind is always moving. In 1 minute, the mind thinks of so many things. What to speak of an hour, and what to speak of a day. There are thousands and thousands of thoughts that go through the mind. They are called varshanas. Varshanas, they are waves. The mind acts in waves. Just as the waves of the ocean are coming and going, the same thing. There are many waves of thoughts, desires that are arising in the mind and disappearing. So the only way we can deal with these waves, these desires, is somehow or the other engage the mind in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vishnu. If the mind is engaged in hearing and chanting and about the glories of Lord Vishnu, that is very wonderful. In the next paragraph, anger is addressed. We cannot stop anger altogether, but if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya became angry with the miscreant brothers Jagai and Madai, who blasphemed and struck Nityananda Prabhu. In his Shishastikam, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Trinarapi Sunichena Taro Api Sahisuna. One should be humbler than the blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited his anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to one's own self. But when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha, anger, cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, where he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This means that he utilizes anger in the right way. Arjuna serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger is not possible. Anger is controlled, however, when utilized in the service of the Lord. So, we all get angry. Anger is a common thing. Anger actually comes from the mind. So, we all get angry. It's a function of the mind. Things that we don't like, we get angry. Things we're not satisfied with, we get angry. So many provocating situations arise every day. Even when we say we don't want to get angry, we don't want to, be affected. But the most of nature will not give us peace. And people around us will always agitate our minds and make us angry. So But one has to learn how to control this anger. And Prabhupada is mentioning here the safest way to control this anger is to use the anger like Hanuman. Use the anger in the service of the Lord. When Hanuman went to Lanka and saw how Ravana was treating Sita, he was so angry that he set the whole Lanka on fire. So anger can be utilized in the service of the Lord. And Prabhupada mentioned that when a devotee of the Lord is blasphemed, when the Lord is blasphemed, when things are not properly done in the service of the Lord, one can show some anger just to correct the situation. And such anger is considered transcendental because one is angry not for his own selfish ends, not for his own self-aggrandizement, but because the Lord's service, the Lord's name, the Lord's devotee is being undermined, is being blasphemed, and therefore anger is necessary. Some Acharya said that Arjuna's anger was aroused by Lord Sri Krishna because Arjuna did not want to fight. He was behaving like a saint. Of course, he's a great devotee, exalted devotee. Arjuna is the best of the 5 Pandavas. He's the dearmost of Krishna. So therefore, Arjuna is a very exalted devotee. Yet he gives it to the painter. Yeah, that's finished. So yet the Lord agitated his mind, and Arjuna uses anger in fighting for Krishna. In fact, it is mentioned that when Arjuna was not sufficiently angry to fight, Krishna created a situation to agitate Arjuna more. And what was the situation Krishna created? Krishna arranged for Arjuna's son to be killed. Those of you who have studied the Mahabharata, you know the story very well, how Abhimanyu was killed. 7 great Maharathas, great warriors, they were fighting with Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu, even though a 16-year-old boy, he was so expert that these 7 great Maharathas, they could not contain Abhimanyu. So they had to use unfair means to kill him. They broke his bow, killed his charioteer, killed his horses, broke his chariot. He was helpless, he had nothing. And then he was killed. And that was against the military standards, military principles. You fight on equal grounds. If your opponent's bow is broken, you also drop your bow, and whatever weapon he picks up, you also pick up that weapon. If he has no weapon, he's going to use his hands. Even though you have weapons, you also drop your weapon, and you also use your fist. But in the case of Abhimanyu, he was killed by 7 Maharathas in a very unfair way. And that was Krishna's arrangement because Arjuna was still respecting. You know how.
He was asking for a change when I
Okay, tell your tenses. You want off the main switch?
Omit, probably need to omit.
You don't want it to interfere in the class. Okay, thank you. So Abhimanyu, Krishna arranged for Abhimanyu to be killed because Arjuna was still fighting with respect. He did not want to hurt Bhishma Dev. He did not want to hurt Dronacharya. He was still showing respect to some of the opponents on the opposite side. He was not fighting to Krishna's desire, to Krishna's will. So Krishna arranged that these powerful Maharatras, they kill Abhimanyu in a very unfair way. And when Arjuna heard that, his anger increased unlimitedly. He took a vow because Jayarata was the person who finally severed the head of Abhimanyu when he had no bow, when he had no weapon. So when Arjuna heard that it was Jayarata who eventually killed his son after they have disarmed him, they broken his chariot, killed his charioteer, broke his bow, broke all his weapons. He had nothing. And still, Jayarata did not spare his life. He cut off his head. Krishna said, Arjuna said, tomorrow by sunset, if I don't kill Jayarata, I will enter fire. We can understand the anger of Arjuna. He was so angry that he took such a terrible vow without knowing that Jayarata is protected. So when he took the vow, Krishna said, my dear Arjuna, why do you take such a vow? Because you don't know that Jayarata is protected by his father. The father is constantly performing yajna to protect him. And even if you kill him, you will not survive also, because whoever cuts Jayarata's head and allows it to fall on the ground, his own head will split into 1,000 places. So it's a very dangerous adventure. If you kill Jayarata, that's okay, but you yourself, you also be dead, because as soon as you cut his head and it touches the ground, your head will also crack into 100,000 places. So what is the use of taking such a vow? And Arjuna said, well, my dear Lord, I have taken the vow. I cannot withdraw it. So you, as my Lord, you have to facilitate this vow. You have to make sure that this, my vow, is fulfilled. So the point here is Krishna, seeing Arjuna not fighting to his full capacity, seeing Arjuna Abhimanyu to be killed in a very, very bad way, very unruly way. And so that made him very angry. And from that moment onward, Arjuna was mad. He was just killing the opposite army. He was just devastating the whole place. Wherever he went, people are just lying. Wherever he passed, he was just slaughtering. So anger can be utilized in Krishna's service. And so Hanuman is mentioned here, Arjuna is mentioned here. How do we use that? We use it in the service of the Lord. The next paragraph talks about the urges of the tongue. The tongue has two functions, eating and speaking.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
yeah, we started the class late, and
Okay.
I'm wondering how long we still want to go. Some of the students have already left,
Oh,
which is not ethical, but
okay.
others also wanted
I
to know
myself
how
have too
long we
many
still.
things in front of me here.
Yeah, we are
I have
already
some
30 minutes
problem.
beyond the time.
Yeah, the time ends at 11:30. Eh?
Yeah, actually, we are already 30 minutes ahead of the time. We have spent extra 30 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I think we'll just end. Let me just round up. We'll end at 12. And then tomorrow, what time are we starting?
We can maintain the same time for this weekend.
9:30 to 11:30.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what I'll do is that I'll run up because we started late. And also I was trying to see whether I could share the PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint helps us to move faster because it's organized. I've already picked the areas of the purports that we are discussing. We don't even need to read. We just read a little bit from the PowerPoint and we just continue with the discussion. But now we are forced to read again. So anyway, we'll end on the urges of the tongue. Of course, the tongue, the belly, and the genitals, they're in a straight line. And so whatever happens to the tongue will happen to the belly. Whatever happens to the belly will happen to the genitals. And the tongue's business is two things: eating and talking, speaking and tasting. So therefore, to control the tongue, we have to speak Krishna Katha. We cannot avoid speaking, and we cannot avoid eating. So these two functions of the tongue are so crucial that everyone is involved in it. Even the birds, the animals, they're involved in it. So therefore, we cannot avoid it. The best option is to engage these propensities in Krishna's service. So if we use the tongue in speaking Krishna Katha, and we use the tongue in tasting Krishna Prasadam, that is the best use, the best option for the tongue. And if the tongue is controlled, the belly will be on control. And if the belly is controlled, the genitals will be controlled. But if the tongue is not controlled, we eat so much and it will push on the genitals and we cannot control the urges of the genitals. So therefore, Rupa Goswami is so kind. He is analyzing these things step by step and giving us a graphical picture of the devastating effect, and we don't control these urges. On the other hand, if we're able to control these urges, you become very sober. You become a Goswami. You become a happy person. People are not happy because of these urges. The urges will not allow anyone to be happy in this material world until we control them. So therefore, Rupa Goswami is giving us the information how we can be happy, how we can be peaceful by controlling these 6 urges. And on that note, we'll end here and we'll see what we'll do on these slides so that tomorrow we can take advantage of the slides. I will see how I can send it to Sanika Prabhu and he can project it for us. So any comments or questions? Otherwise, we call it a day. Hare Krishna, Mother, you have some question, some comment?
No, Prabhuji.
All right.
Tomorrow I'll ask.
Tomorrow we continue.
How to cook now.
All right. Not to cook something. It's important. Raghunatha Prabhu, we have some questions. Aswini Kumara Prabhu, we have a question. Ramachandra Prabhu, any question? Otherwise, we say Hare Krishna.
No, Guru Dev, we are okay. Tomorrow we reserve our questions. So tomorrow.
All right. All right.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Jai, Jai. Prabhupada ki Jai.
Yeah.
Very nice, Srivas Vanachari Prabhu.
Prabhupada ki